Here is what I think a very nice little challenge. These are parts of a made in Germany car, but made very long time ago. These are parts of an Opel something, I don't know, I've never seen the car. It's an oldtimer and it's absolutely impossible to find original parts. As you can see, to take the thing apart, they had to kill it. But in this little setback, there's of course also a big advantage, is that this little piece is much lighter than the complete assembly. As you can see here, they had to cut a whole part out, and there is also damage on the shaft here. So of course this part comes here, and then the brake drum comes over here. And because the original parts are impossible to find, they bought the closest match. But as you can see, the bore in here is straight and there are splines. So my job is to cut out these splines and make a taper that fits here. But of course it's not that easy. Cutting a taper in this bore and of course make disappear these splines is maybe not a big problem. So that will work. But if the splines are completely cut out, the bore in here will be bigger than the taper. So the plan is to clean up a little bit this part and then weld it up and build up material and recut the same angle of taper, but of course bigger. And also the center, this part here with the thread is completely mashed up because of course they had to use an overdose of useless violence to get it apart. So I have to fix this one, build up and recut this taper, recut the key, and of course also make a key slot in here. But because the bore will be tapered and I need to cut this slot, I need to hold my part in an angle. So that will be a challenging setup. Probably I'm gonna make a fixture for it and then cut it on the shaper. And all this of course 2 times, because this car has 2 rear wheels. 2. Before I start cutting and welding and whatever other things in this part here, first of all, a disclaimer. Normally I refuse to do this kind of jobs. In my opinion, it is very important to use original parts, and then especially on brakes and wheels and steering. I think it's very important. You never know what can happen. But this car is an oldtimer. It's a museum piece. So this one is not gonna run for hours and hours and miles of kilometers. It's never gonna run any rallies or whatever. But of course, the owner must be able to move it and use the brakes. That's all. So I think he wants it mobile, just to put it on a trailer to go to a car show and then after bring it back home, and that's all. So for this time, okay, I will do it, but normally I refuse. Let's cut. I think the place to start is here on the lathe. I will set it up in the forge jaw and then center it of course, so I can install the compound or top slide at the right angle to cut this taper. That will be of course cut on this part, but also in the drum. My indicator tells me that this tapered part is not straight. There's a little bit of bow in it. And also it is not round. It's a little bit egg-shaped. But the difference is less than 2/100ths of a millimeter. So more or less a half a thou. For this thing, I think it's not important because I'm gonna cut the both tapers in this angle that is set now, and of course also the brake drums. So automatically they will match. Right, this one can come out now. In the recut the jaws video that I made some time ago, some of you commented that here on the forejaw, to hold of course this screw in place, there is this little plug 4 times inside. You can see it, but it's here. And it could well be that when I tighten the chuck against the back plate, that these plugs are pushing against the screws here. But that's not the case. Watch this. This is more or less hard to turn. And it's the jaws that are a little bit stuck in the slides. And as you can see, the screws are perfectly fine, all 4 of them. So it is indeed this slot here that doesn't fit perfectly in the slide on inside the chuck here. That's all. Next step is to install the drum here on the lathe to be able to cut the taper. And the easiest way is of course to switch the jaws the other side around and install the thing like this. It's easy to center, easy to hold. But this will be of course the small side on the taper. And I want to see what's happening and take measurements from the big side. So I need to install it this way on the machine. And the jaws are too small to hold it. So I think I'm gonna use a back plate. That of course doesn't fit yet on this machine. Here is a 3-bolt pattern that doesn't match these 3 bolts, but there is a 2-bolt here, and this was made to fit on my other lathe. And these 2 holes, they match the holes for the 4-jaw chuck here. So all I have to do is drill them a little bit bigger and make 2 more, so these 4 holes will fit these 4 bolts here. Oops! The reason why this drill bit broke is of course because on the other side there is a rim exactly where the holes come through. And this is where the drill bit is gonna grab in one side. And I know this can happen, so I was drilling very carefully at the end, but not carefully enough. Cut you. Use an end mill, much better. That's good. A little bit of wiggle room to center it, because here I have a cute little center. I think this will work perfectly fine. All I have to do is drill holes here in the back plate. And if you have a milling machine with a DRO, it's really easy to do. You install the 5-bolt pattern in your DRO. And of course, you need to know the distance between the center and the holes, and you start drilling. But I don't have a DRO. And that's of course not a problem, because I have the Zeus book. And in the book it's marked the 5-hole pattern and the system how to calculate. Now I will not dig into it, because this is a very specific stuff. If you need to know this, it's very easy to find online. And if you don't find, mail me, I will copy this and send it to you, no problem. So I did the layout here on my future backplate, and of course I checked it with my primitive but very handy tool here, and as you can see, we're spot on. Just one problem is that this hole falls in this big hole, and if I twist my whole setup, it's this hole that falls in this hole, and if I twist the other side, it's this hole that falls in this hole, and this even more. And have to be careful, because I'm again here in this rim. As I said, in the rim. I made a stupid mistake. I drilled the holes, these 5 holes here, at the wrong spot. The pattern was right, but the radius between here, the center and this bolt, was wrong. So I had to re-drill and re-tap all the holes. But now it holds on the 5 bolts and not 4. This will be much better. Let's install an indicator on this thing. What I wanted to do is to check here on the surface where the brake pads come. But because behind here there is nothing, the more I tighten this bolt, the more I'm gonna deform this dish thing here. So it's close to impossible. But my center here, the hub itself, is close to okay-ish. What I see here is less than 2/100ths of a millimeter. So a half a thou, a little bit less. And that is of course also because my spindle is moving a little bit. So let's cut out these splines. It gives a lot of vibration here on my boring bore. So it could well be that I have to change setup because I will never have a good finish for the taper. Of course now it's not important, but we'll see. This is the second brake drum, and as you can see I installed it the other way around. So now I use way less tool stick out and this works much better. And this looks good. I can hardly feel the difference between the splines and the deepest part, so that's good. Let's start make the taper. Good. Both tapers are cut and now I can make some root measurements. This one comes here. The back side here comes in line with the bearing here. So it's gonna make it a little bit easier. And when I hold it in place, I see that I have to build up more or less 2 millimeters of material here, but not over the whole length. But first I will clean up this mess here. I'm gonna cut off until I reach this hole here and hoping that there is nice and solid material behind it, and then weld it up a bit so I can make a new center in it. In my opinion, while they're here, they should change these bearings. This one is completely cooked and the other side too. And it looks like these are completely standard bearings, so not nothing special. But that's of course not my decision, so I will give them a little bit of anti-chips protection. Far from perfect, but perfect from far. A little bit more. That's good. I will clean this up with the angle grinder. Because heat and duct tape doesn't mix very well, to protect this bearing here, I will replace it with lum lum lum. That will do. I think so far I made good progress. And the welding and recutting part, that will be for next week's video. See you there.